Welcome back, everyone. Welcome back to the PondCast, your weekly talk show of all things StarCraft. I'm of course host VIP. With you, I'm joined by Kuro behind the scenes, handling the production, and of course, the lovely people in the chat. Welcome, one and all, to our weekly talk show where we wrap up with, or we catch up with all the StarCraft events and StarCraft adjacent news as well. There's a lot to get into. I do apologize. Typically, we are scheduled to broadcast this last night, every Wednesdays at least. Today, though, we did have to reschedule. Unfortunately, it does mean that we're going to be clashing a little bit here with the RSL, but despite that, there's a lot to catch up on. And of course, if the RSL is still going on, we'll give them a lovely raid afterwards as well. For now, though, let's jump into our first bit of news. First things first is going to be the Belém Gen Star Zagora interviews. We did speak on this last week, and we have had some more interviews since then. There have been, basically, these are little small pieces, little interviews that they did actually hold during the event, that they broadcasted during the event, and now on YouTube, they are releasing them one after the other. So I do recommend checking them out. Again, if you did miss out on the event, or if you only watched the games and did miss out on some of the interviews, then there's nice little bite-sized pieces of, content from the players, of personality from the players as well. So, since last week, we did have an interview from Ryung. We had Ryung, Nitix, Christianer, Trigger, and Showtime. So, oh boy. And Showtime's interview was just posted yesterday, so it's possible. I think we still have a couple more. we might still have a couple more to go. So we'll see. Again, we'll keep you guys posted. We'll keep you guys updated if that is to be the case. But again, they also created some highlights from their event as well. And again, another reason why we are promoting this is because it's a rare site. Typically, when content is made during tournaments, that isn't really released individually on YouTube. Sometimes they release them on social media, sometimes on Twitter, or on Facebook, or on Instagram. They do post these small little clips, but it is still a rare sight to see. So much love to Star Zagora, much love to Belém Gems for actually doing this, for actually putting in the time and effort to kind of like showcase this and to promote their own tournaments and to promote their players as well. So that is available, of course, and I do recommend it. When it comes to any little fun things to hear from some of these interviews, again, they're quite short. It was interesting to hear from Nitix talking about how he actually qualified through the Bulgaria qualifier off racing as Protoss. I wasn't too familiar with that. I do remember that he was off racing a little bit during the qualifier, and he was talking about how he was willing to switch to Protoss as well during the event, which I didn't quite get to see myself, but I'm sure he had a good time nonetheless, representing his nation, representing his people. Likewise, we also got to hear from Christianer, and he was talking about how he, was looking forward to playing against Geralt, and he likes Polish PvP. SMH, my head. Yeah. So it was definitely fun to hearing from Trigger, hearing from Showtime, talking about their previous experiences at Star Zagora in the previous year, and their excitement to return to the event and return to the country. So yeah, do recommend it. It is, again, a lot of fun. Very short interview, so it doesn't take too long to indulge. That leads us into our next big interview, though. This was conducted by the SE historian over at DreamHack Dallas. We spoke about this last week, as he has been actually producing and releasing more and more of these interviews. Last week, we covered his content piece on Jumi. He did have a content piece on Jumi, and also with Fear Dragon as well. So we had an interview with Fear Dragon, an interview with Jumi, and now we have him here with an interview with Geralt as well. This is a bit of a longer, more extensive interview, I will say. So there's definitely a lot more to sink your teeth into here, and I'm sure there's going to be more interviews to come. So again, big shout out to the SE historian. Again, really nice interviewing skills. He's obviously very dedicated, very passionate about the game, about the players as well, to even ask more in-depth questions, I should say, to the players that he's clearly very interested in. So really fun to hear from the side of Geralt. And this was also very insightful in regards to a tournament that was released and that was announced last week that we covered, the Fusion Esports League. Before getting ahead of myself, I will say that there's a little bit of clickbait in regards to the title, and I do recall seeing this in the YouTube comments and the Reddit as well. Basically, Geralt's choosing StarCraft over practicing law. Something that I found quite interesting here is that Geralt, it's not like he abandoned his passions to dedicate his time to, practicing law, becoming a lawyer or anything like that. Not at all. He went through with it. He did actually get his degree. He actually did finish his studies, and as a result has been actually the best way of putting it, maybe freelancing in kind of like the area of law, I should say. And he did kind of divulge a little bit into that. He said he couldn't really get into too much details, but he was actually contracted in some way and was obviously working in the field and providing some support when it comes to certain cases. And yeah, he is actively practicing law in some way.
Yeah, from what he said,
But
it sounded like he takes part in like contract negotiations and this kind of stuff, essentially. So yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So he has been taking part in such things. So again, the title makes it sound like, you know, he stopped doing that completely and then he started focusing on StarCraft. But he tries to emphasize that he tries to have a balance of the two, where he is focusing on StarCraft and committing to practicing and playing, but also still dedicating some time to practicing law as well and working on his own other career path, I should say. So he's kind of doing a balancing of the two. So yeah, it was really cool to hear from that, just because I personally did not know that that's kind of what Geralt was interested in, what Geralt was working towards. Maybe some of the Polish fans that are maybe tuning into Indie stream or to Geralt stream, maybe they were a little bit more aware, but at least for the international audience, it was really nice to get a little bit more from Geralt.
I can tell you that they were aware, because I remember that meme floating about people calling Geralt a lawyer, and I didn't quite understand. I was like, oh, maybe he's like studying or something, but no, he does have a degree. He is an actual lawyer.
Yeah, there you go. So he already does have that under his belt. So really cool to hear that he's already finished his degree, that he's already finished with his studies, that he's working in the field in some capacity. So again, really cool to hear from that. He also got a little bit more in depth, as with a lot of these interviews, in regards to how he got into StarCraft. He is a little bit older than Jumi, of course. Jumi is one of the Zoomers, and Geralt is one generation before that. He spoke about how, he was watching StarCraft back in Heart of the Swarm. He was a fan of Team Liquid's hero, a fan of Jaedong, a fan of some of the more older school players. This also kind of led into the question about SOS. If you recall, last week we spoke about how, you know, when the SC historian actually posed the question to Jumi is like, yo, I was still in the womb when SOS was competing. Like, he's like, I don't know how that works. I don't know. Like, he doesn't have that kind of context, doesn't have that kind of fan atmosphere around him in regards to SOS. That is not the case for Geralt. He was like, no, yeah, I remember watching SOS back in the day. I was a big fan. I was definitely cheering for him as well. And for SOS to be a part of Stream Zone, it means more to Geralt, just because he has that greater context, as opposed to Jumi, who, it's just a young boy. He's so Jimmy, he knows a little bit less about said SOS as a result. Geralt's, knowing more. So really cool to hear from that. Likewise, also touched on certain things like, the benefits of competing in StarCraft and what it's done for him as a person, as a player, as an entity. Spoke about how it helped with when it came to his shyness, when it came to his confidence, competing on stage, competing in front of people, hearing them cheer for you as well. Like, that all did help him, just because before that he was very much so shy and very tentative and wasn't necessarily a very outgoing person. So they kind of delved a little bit more into that kind of personal aspect of Geralt. So again, I do recommend checking out the interview itself. But then they got a little bit more into detail in regards to upcoming events. Before I get into that, though, something that I found also very interesting that I was unaware of, but again, I'm sure the Polish scene and Polish community was more kind of ingrained in, is the fact that apparently Geralt, we knew that he was casting, if you recall, he was casting in Polish. The most recent I Am Katowice, he was covering that stream, but something that I didn't know was he was also the stream director for, he said, the EWC B stream at the time, and he was actually organizing and helping to produce the stream, kind of organizing, when to cut the players, when to cut certain stats, when to change graphics. He was kind of the person behind the scenes, organizing and directing the stream itself, which I did not know. I wasn't aware that he actually, took part in that, and he was actually involved in some way, shape, or form. So it was really cool to hear. Again, that was for the EWC B stream, not for the main stream at the time. So yeah, definitely really cool to hear that he did more than just cast or just play StarCraft, but also, on the technical side of things, he maybe has some interest there. He spoke about how he was really excited and how it was very gratifying, or very, how should I say, very rewarding. There we go. Very rewarding to work in that kind of aspect, and he had a lot of fun with it. So yeah, it was really cool to hear a little bit more from Geralt, things that we otherwise didn't know. That does lead into the main kind of topic, or one of the main topics here of the interview, is the Fusion Esports League. We did announce this league last week. It is a big offline event happening in Krakow, or happening in Poland, and it is going to have an international aspect with international qualifiers as well, with global qualifiers. So it's not just a national event, not just for Polish players like House Galactic Battle. This is going to involve more players. It's going to involve a more diverse kind of player base to take part in. And it was interesting to hear. Apparently, it's something that he's been working on for a very, very long time. And I wasn't aware as to the scope of the event. In my mind, it's like a StarCraft. It's like House Galactic Battle. It's like a StarCraft event, or like the esports event, I should say. But no, apparently it's a little bit bigger. Apparently it's involving multiple different esports. So it's going to be involving multiple different games: StarCraft, Tekken, Street Fighter, and FIFA as well. So there's a wider array of kind of tournaments and esports being featured at the event itself, which is really cool to hear. It does kind of put a different, there's a bigger scope, I should say, on the event, and it does make it a little bit grander as well. Definitely a lot more ambitious. And not just that, but Geralt, he expressed his desire to turn this into an annual tournament. He spoke about how, again, because they've been working on it for so long, they want to make this like an annual tournament. They want to grow the event, of course. They have plans for, if they're able to successfully grow the event after a couple of years, they would love it. They would love to actually have it be international, in the sense that not just they bring in international players, but they can maybe host multiple events in other countries as well, which would be amazing. But again, it's a very ambitious project and very ambitious goals. I mean, he himself did say that that's like multiple years down the road to try to do such a thing. What I will say is that I do think that something that benefits that idea is the fact that he's not tying himself just to one game. He's definitely having a variety of esports, so he's not kind of like tying himself to the health of one scene, but the health of multiple scenes. So there's a higher chance of that actually being successful and actually continuing to maintain interest, and obviously does open the door for other esports as well, for other games, not just what has been listed, but potentially growing even larger than that. So he's not kind of like pigeonholing himself into like a small kind of like niche crowd. It has a broader aspect. So yeah, it's definitely, it does sound really well thought out. Obviously, still want to emphasize, it sounds very ambitious, and definitely going to be a long road ahead for Geralt in regards to this event. Obviously, the first step, the first things first, the first tournament, the first event itself, later on here in the month, that we're going to be casting, of course, in English when it comes to the qualifiers, when it comes to the main tournament, and we'll see how well it does perform. If it goes well, then it bodes well for upcoming events and upcoming years of StarCraft, or upcoming years of Fusion Esports League. I guess it also puts some greater context into the name itself, Fusion Esports. The idea of combining multiple things together, combining multiple esports together in one event. Let's go. We also had the SE historian ask him if he had any issues when it comes to pitching this idea to the sponsors, to the organizers, considering that StarCraft is a little bit smaller than it once was. But Geralt, he did emphasize something that we know here on the channel, is the fact that the StarCraft scene in Poland is still very strong. That's the reason why they've successfully had offline events already. Having multiple IM Katowices every year. I mean, or having consecutive IM Katowices every year does help with that as well, that the crowd, the scene, the passion for StarCraft is very much so alive in Poland. Not just in Poland, but in other events. I mean, that's why we've seen success when it comes to the Brazilian StarCraft 2 circuit and the offline event in Brazil happening here in Poland as well. And of course, we had DreamHack Dallas in the Americas, and they also spoke about how large the audience was. This kind of this led into a tangent talking about live audiences and what their thoughts are, and audiences in general for StarCraft. Just because every time there is an offline event, whether it's in the Americas, whether it's in Poland, whether it's in Brazil, whether it's in other areas in the world, there actually is a lot of participation. There's a lot of viewership. There's a lot of presence when it comes to that live audience. There's definitely a lot of interest in that, but it's kind of hard to harness that in a way. I would say hard to harness just because we spoke on this last week as well, talking about Cheeseadelphia. Now, Cheeseadelphia, I would say, is a big event in the Americas, but so many people were unaware of it, and as a result, I would say that they had a really good sign-ups for players, but not many viewers, not many people went to the event just to watch, just to take part in, and they just didn't know. They just weren't aware. And I feel like it's even more important here to try to boost and try to support and try to promote events like this that are able to, get their feet off the ground in regards to an offline setting. And again, they make for some good events, some good StarCraft, and these are things that we have to support that much more. So again, it's going to be a big endeavor here for Geralt. We do wish him the best of luck. They also spoke about like the growing viewership on YouTube as well, which is also true, and also something that we spoke about many times on this show, on the podcast, especially with Yaku, talking about how viewership on Twitch was decreasing, but viewership on YouTube over the years has been increasing quite heavily in regards to people like Euthermal, Pig, Loco, Wardy, even ourselves. Even we have been getting thousands of views on our videos in this year specifically. Our YouTube has grown immensely compared to in years past, and compared to our Twitch even as well. So yeah, really cool to see, and it's definitely something that shows that there's still interest, there's still viewership, there's still people that want StarCraft content, that are looking for StarCraft content. They just have to find it. We just have to provide it for them, I should say. So, yeah, definitely really cool to hear. And again, the interview did have even more that they delved into in regards to player mindset and their competitive form, talking about previous teams. Again, it was quite a lengthy interview, actually, especially compared to the Jumi one. So I do recommend it. Do check it out. And yeah, it's always great to hear more from players and just learn more from people like Geralt. Do appreciate it. And a big shout out to the SE Historian for bringing this to our attention and for shedding a light on Geralt. Let's go. Let us go.
Something that I found as a funny fun fact was that apparently Geralt actually is from Krakow, so this is basically his home city that he's hosting the tournament in.
Yeah. He spoke about what he loves about his city, what he prefers about it, and again, there's a lot more that they went into. So again, I do recommend checking out the interview yourselves. I do recommend tuning in and giving it a listen, as that leads us into some more interview content, a little bit lighter here. That leads us into the Basilisk Road to EWC. This did begin last week. We were, of course, kind of propping Basilisk up and talking about how this is something that we wish that more teams did. Basically, that countdown to EWC, these small content pieces to hype up, to showcase their players, to allow you to see a little bit more of their personality in the lead up to the Esports World Cup. Here again, they had some fun little questions that they asked their players. Up first, we did have a question to Trigger and Raynor about, like, would you rather play your main race with high ping or off race with 0 ping? And I think what I found funny about this is I don't want to put the interviewer on blast too much, but basically Raynor and Trigger were asked this, and Trigger, he was like, okay, but how much ping? And the interviewer was like, oh, ping, it's like, it's the lag and latency in between actions. He's like, yeah, how much? And the interviewer was like, they were being grilled about the specifics of the question, and they had no answer. And it's the Trigger, he would not let up on that. And then he was like, okay, you know what? So I'll give you my cutoff is 200 ping. At 200 ping, I'll switch to my off race and play with 0 ping. That was his limit. But I just found it funny because it did sound like the interviewer wasn't too familiar with, like, what is high or what is low, like what certain thresholds are, and what is considered to be too much or too little ping. And he was being grilled by Trigger. I was like, oh god. He was being interrogated. Somehow the interview, the interview turned on the interviewer itself. It was crazy. Raider, he was having fun with it. He expressed how, like, 0 ping with Protoss, that's pretty good. It was especially because he off races professionally as well. So again, it was a fun little question. Only to Raynor and Trigger. Cyril was not a part of that first little question or content piece. Up next was tell us your favorite unit. We had Trigger, Cyril, and Raynor this time, all three of them, for said question. And we had some, I would say, pretty expected answers. Trigger, he spoke about the Stalker, how how much like micro potential it has, how much expression it has, and the ability to use it. So he was quite fond of the Stalker. Raynor, he went for the Zergling. Also makes sense. Very fast units, very high paced. Does allow for a faster player like Raynor to kind of really express himself. And Cyril went for the Roach, which also makes sense. Cyril, he said, like, yeah, usually it's just a safe way to not die. It's like, yeah, true. We've spoken at length about Roach-based openers and ZVT in the past, especially in regards to Cyril, and that's kind of what he was alluding to, so they did just pick their favorite units. And again, it's nothing too big. It's like less than a minute long, these videos, and we should be expecting more of them in the upcoming weeks in the lead up to EWC. So hey, do consider following Basilisk. Do consider following them on Twitter, as they don't upload these videos to YouTube from my understanding. I don't think they upload to YouTube Shorts. These are just little bite-sized content pieces for Twitter
Actually,
instead.
I think I've seen it in Shorts recently. I think they started putting this in Shorts as well. So.
Okay. If they're in Shorts, then I think they had their longer interview, the Stars Agora one on YouTube. I'm not too certain about these, but if they're over on YouTube as well with Shorts, then do check them out. Just saying, no, yeah, they have them. There you go. So you can check them out on YouTube as well. So do follow Bassus, whether it's on Twitter, whether it's on YouTube. They have you covered there. They have a bunch of magic content as well. I just realized. But regardless, do check him out. And again, we should be seeing some more in the coming days and weeks in lead up to EWC. Speaking of EWC, that leads us to Team Liquid. If you don't quite recall, if it maybe slipped your mind, Esports World Cup, they did produce a kind of like a short mini-series kind of TV show. I say TV show, a short miniseries. Maybe that's the best way of putting it. On Prime Video. So on Amazon Prime Video, they did release this mini series showcasing players from different esports that are competing in Esports World Cup. And the reason why I bring this up is because one of the players that is showcased and one of the players that has their own episode dedicated to them is Clem. And it is not out yet. It looks like they're releasing these on a weekly basis, and specifically episode 5, which is featuring Clem, is coming out this Friday. So that is going to be tomorrow. So tomorrow, or depending on your time zone, maybe in 2 days' time is a safe way to put it. But in a couple of days, we will be having that Clem episode, and it's very reminiscent to the Signature series, very reminiscent, going through, some of his personal life, his lead up to EWC, his history as a player. I'm sure a lot of people watching Esports World Cup, or a lot of the newer people that are watching this show from other esports, haven't seen the Signature series. So from what I've seen, it does look like some reused footage from when Clem was younger. It looks like they're going over some of that old ground, going over like the backstory of Clem, how he got into esports, his dad talking about it as well, of course, because his dad was also, in StarCraft initially, and introduced Clem, and kind of like his rise in the pro scene and his introduction to the pro scene as well. So it's a nice, again, kind of introduction to Clem, and a hype up video for him coming into becoming the Esports World Cup champion. So again, do recommend it. Do check it out. Unfortunately, it is behind a paywall for Prime Video, so there is that to consider, of course. But this was like a nice little teaser of the episode. Yeah, a nice little teaser talking about and hyping up Clem, and yeah, I'm sure the episode is going to be amazing. Do look forward to it. Oh. So again, really cool to see that they're going to be showcasing Clem. Meanwhile, that leads us into our next bit of news here. Something a little bit more somber, something that we were expecting, of course, is a Creator. Creator, he was one of the few big players that did not qualify for the Esports World Cup. There are certain players like Creator. Another big one that a lot of people do bring up is Gumiho. Creator, Gumiho, Ryung as well. There are some key big names that did not make it into the Esports World Cup, and because of that, we will be most likely seeing some of this here in the upcoming days and weeks, is the teams likewise kind of letting those players go. So it looks like a creator, he is no longer on Alcadzia Esports, is now a free agent and looking for a new team. Again, it was really unfortunate. Like creator, he came so close to qualifying for the Esports World Cup. We were covering his run during the EWC Korean qualifiers, and alas, he barely didn't make it through those qualifiers. I should also mention he barely didn't make it to the global qualifier. He was in that final tiebreaker series. He was in the final tiebreaker series against Gumiho, and only one of them could make it to the global qualifier, and it was Gumiho, who also didn't quite make it through the qualifier, didn't make it to the Esports World Cup. Again, it shows just how brutal and how intense those qualifiers were. So my heart goes out to Creator and wish him the best when it comes to the future, when it comes to upcoming teams or upcoming decisions when it comes to competing in StarCraft and continuing down his road. So best of luck to Creator. That leads us into Luna C. This was a bit of more of a surprise. Streamer Zone picking up another player. Their roster slowly getting larger and larger here. On the one hand, it makes some sense in the sense that Lunacy, he was a part of Home Story Cup, and he was there as a player, but he was also acting as a bit of a translator. He was helping to translate for SOS and for Zaun specifically. The other Koreans that maybe don't have the best English, Lunacy has his own background, when it comes to his own English background, I should say. He was able to provide some translations, and Streamer Zone took notice. They took notice. They're like, hey, this is a good player. Hey, he's out here, translating. Maybe we can take advantage of that in some way. And they have picked up Lunacy. So a nice pickup here from Streamer Zone, and really cool to see Lunacy finding, these opportunities and being able to find a new team.
Also, I want to point out, speaking of Streamer Zone, that we also had a tweet from the owner of Streamer Zone, which says, "My goal for 2025, make StarCraft great again. Me and my staff at Streamer Zone are working on something big. Keep you posted."
Yes. We did hear from the owner how he's working on something. What exactly, hard to say. I know that he also, I think he was also promoting his Discord in regards to like people joining it and people taking part in Streamer Zone. I think that was more of a general statement though. But clearly, like the owner of Streamer Zone is very passionate about StarCraft. I know that they are involved in other esports as well. True. They're involved in other esports and in other endeavors. But yeah, they definitely are passionate about StarCraft. And, could they be talking about a tournament? Could they be talking about expanding their team? I feel like a tournament would be the thing that makes the most sense, or maybe partnering with another team or partnering with another tournament organizer. Regardless, really cool to hear, really cool to see. And I think they even, am I crazy? I think they, are they partnered with the SE Historian? I saw something regarding that.
I know they did partner for Dallas specifically, that the SE Historian made content for them at Dallas, but I don't know if this was like, a one-off, just a contract work, or if they like partnering for long term.
Yeah. That's what I heard. So, I mean, now it makes sense why we have those interviews with Jimmy and with Geralt, and that means that there's a high chance that we're going to be seeing interviews with SOS as well. With SOS, with Homono, if you remember Homono, he was also representing Streamer Zone for the event. So, yeah, there's a high chance. And Baby Marine, of course, as well. So, yeah, we'll see what this StarCraft historian does bring out in regards to that. I'm hoping that he's also got interviews with some of the other players. I'm sure he does outside of just Streamer Zone. But yeah, I saw that as well. So again, like clearly Streamer Zone, or the owner at least, is very dedicated, very passionate, and a lot to look forward to. From Streamer Zone as well. So shout out to Luna C. That leads us into our next bit of news regarding Super Sevens. This is a show match series that has been running for quite some time, for over a year at this point. I say over a year, since last year, since 2024, and has been quite a regular when it comes to events that we cover. Unfortunately, it does look like they are going on hiatus, specifically in regards to their tournaments. Again, they typically do run events on a weekly basis up until this point, but looks like they are going to be going on hiatus. I say hiatus because their phrasing specifically was suspended. July is going to be their last month of tournaments, of show matches. Then they're going to be then they're going to be suspending those events, and we'll see if they come back or not. It's hard to say whether or not they will, what they're waiting for in regards to another league, in regards to another year of StarCraft with EWC. It is a little bit sad just because it's an event that has been quite consistent and a lot of players have been relying upon. So yeah, unfortunately, we are going to be saying, or we're going to be bidding adieu to Super 7 post-July, coming into August. So definitely a little bit heartbreaking to hear, but hopefully we're able to see some more from Soup in regards to StarCraft in the future. That leads us, speaking of Soup, that leads us here into the RSL partnership with Crank. Now, this is interesting for a couple of different reasons here. Crank, he's not a Soup streamer, he's a Chijik streamer. So in Korea, there are multiple different competing streaming platforms. For those that recall, Twitch, they kind of pulled their support for Korean streamers quite some time ago at this point. And in lieu of that, we saw other streaming platforms kind of rise up to kind of step in and do their parts and try to provide a platform for Korean streamers to fall back on. Afrika TV, they rebranded as Soup. We had Naver step in, and they did launch their streaming platform, which is Chijik. And I believe there's also another big streaming platform from Kakao. I think they also launched their own platform. So I think it's Kakao Live or something along those lines. So there's three big ones in Korea. And Crank, he did become a Chijik streamer, and that led into a lot of good things for StarCraft, right? It led into a Lima League, right? They officially sponsored Lima League despite it being only a couple of months. Regardless, did support it for quite some time, and I know that they were quite happy with the results of a Lima League as well in regards to what it brought to the platform. Chijik, he is the biggest StarCraft 2 Korean streamer at this point. Like, he does a lot of content, and he's the biggest one out there for Chijik. I know that other streamers have flocked to Chijik as well, regarding to Kiwian, JYP, Supernova as well, Rumieth. I know that Shin, he also does stream on Chijik, so there's been a lot of StarCraft people that have StarCraft 2 Korean personalities that have actually started streaming on Chijik. What I find interesting actually is that Soup less so. There is a little bit of StarCraft 2 representation on Soup, but in my mind, just because of where players have flocked to, it almost feels like StarCraft 2, like Chijik is where all the StarCraft 2 people are, and Soup is where all the Brood War people are. Like that's almost how it feels here, just because again, Brood War is very predominant over on the Soup platform. That's of course where all the Korean streamers are, where Flash is, Jaedong, Stork, Bisu, and all the others. They're all on Soup. Which is why it's interesting to hear that Crank, he has partnered, and the phrasing here is important, it's collaborate. So it's not like he's switching from being a Chijik streamer to being a Soup streamer. It looks like this is solely for the RSL, for the Revival StarCraft League, which is really cool to hear, because it sounds like basically those working behind the scenes on RSL reached out to Soup. They reached out to Soup. Maybe they reached out to Chijik as well in regards to covering the event and partnering in some way to have some Korean presence and some Korean viewership for the RSL, and they were able to work out some kind of deal and be like, hey, yeah, we'll cover it. Let's go. Who's the biggest caster right now in the Korean scene? Well, it's Crank, but he's over on Chijik, so it looks like they were able to work something out, and it looks like Crank is going to be jumping on and is going to be covering this event on Soup, which is really cool to hear. So much love to Crank for having this opportunity. And does this mean that we might see some more Crank on Soup? Does it mean that Soup is going to be covering more StarCraft on their platform as well? RSL, is it an exception? Is it the beginning of maybe more StarCraft 2 coverage on Soup? I hope so. I do hope so. Always a good thing, for sure. Always a good thing. So we'll see what happens and what occurs and what comes from this. I would say it might be a sign of things to come, of, again, like more of these kind of collaborations, which is always a good thing. So really cool to see RSL getting that Korean coverage, for sure. And again, shout out to Crank for being able to provide this as well. I said he's our boy. He's our boy. Meanwhile, that leads us into the StarCraft Evolution Complete PTR amendment here. Basically, last week we covered the 1.16 PTR that was initially announced. It was a massive thread and a lot of changes. Again, that was our longest podcast in a long time covering so much. It took hours to get through everything. And it looks like there is going to be some more changes, some more amendments to that PTR. This is the 1.16 PTR 1.1, and there might be more additions. There might be more amendments to the PTR in the coming weeks as well. What I will say is that it's really cool to hear, or really good to hear that we are, I mean, we covered this previously as well, but it's really good to hear that we are getting some adjustments based on feedback. Always a good thing. That was always the biggest concern coming into the PTR balance update, is that, that we have all these changes and they're going to commit to them, but no, they are going to be adjusting things. First things first, as we get into this, again, this is going to be a PTR, or this PTR is going to be showcased in the StarCraft Evolution League Masters number 4 tournament. We are going to be providing some replay coverage on that as well, and it looks like the event has already concluded over the weekend. We'll get there once we cover it ourselves. Scrolling down, there's kind of a lot to get through in regards to their introduction when it comes to their setup here coming into it. From the top here, before proceeding with balance changes, I would like to take the time to address numerous topics that the community seem to have questions about. Also, before I get into this, I should emphasize, for those that are maybe hearing this for the first time and like, StarCraft Evolution, what is that? This is a mod. This is a mod that does bring together Brood War and StarCraft 2 and pits them against each other in a 1v1 format. It's a game mode that we've been covering for almost a year, or around a year at this point. I want to say last year, around like September, August-ish. Like post EWC is when we started covering StarCraft Evolution on a more regular basis. So again, it has its own niche, it has its own player base, has its own streamer base as well, has its own niche, I should say, and it does feel like there's been a lot of passion, a lot of dedication to working on the mod, to improving the mod, to balancing the game, and also in other projects to like make a remastered campaign version as well, and so on and so forth in regards to Brood War. But looks like there have been some changes in recent times, and this is definitely something worth talking about. We have the composition of the developer team. Reading around the web, I see many people who are confused about who is actually on the developer team. You can read about us on the front page of our wiki, but Team Cthulhu staff has distinct roles that can be divided as follows: lead team, assets team, campaign team, multiplayer team, and localization team. So again, the team working on this, the Cthulhu staff, is quite extensive. They have a lot of different aspects to them that work on multiple different parts of StarCraft Evolution at once, I would imagine. Lead team. These members oversee the direction of SC Evo Complete, manage core data, and coordinate efforts between other branches of the team. Assets team. These members create models, animations, visual effects, tilesets, and more. Campaign team. These members focus on the campaign maps and design. As I mentioned before, this isn't just a multiplayer mod. They're also working on the campaign at the same time, basically creating their own more extensive, more extensive version of the Brood War campaign. I know that the Brood War campaign has already been worked on and has already been ported over in other ways. I say in other ways though because again, like here they're dedicated to creating the Brood War units and creating all these assets and making it look visually more similar to Brood War as well. Like there's almost like a greater goal here in regards to what we've seen previously. Is it like StarCraft Recall, or there's like another? There's an older version. Yeah, that's it. Mass Recall is like the port, which still uses like StarCraft 2 units and StarCraft 2 models. The multiplayer team. These members are focused on multiplayer maps and designs, and with the localization team, these members make our work accessible to new audiences and serve as linguistic and cultural liaisons for their respective communities. Although some overlap exists, most members specialize in just one of these, and it is not possible to, for example, simply reassign campaign team to work on multiplayer. Moreover, new developers who are both willing and skilled enough are hard to come by. Many of our members work on a volunteer basis. The amount of funding that does support us usually goes directly towards commissioning new assets. Who am I? This is an interesting thing to get into here. Again, we are quite deep in regards to the development of the mod, but here we have Hyper One, who feels the need to kind of introduce himself, and there's a reason for that as well, which we'll be getting into. As you may know, my name is Hyper One. My day job is software development, but I spend almost all my free time working on SE Evo. Hyper1, he is the person behind the StarCraft Evolution League, which is, from my understanding, doesn't really have any direct affiliation with StarCraft Evolution, but is its own tournament circuit. He also does sponsor other events like the StarCraft Evolution League, King of the Hill, Masters tournaments, Code A. And on top of that, he also creates his own his own maps as well. He ports his own maps from Brood War into SC2. I mean, he'll be getting into it. But he recently did become a part of Team Cthulhu. As a member of Team Cthulhu, my responsibilities include posting multiplayer maps from Brood War, multiplayer balance and design, writing English blog posts, maintaining the official wiki at Wikipedia, and developing internal and external companion software tools. Specifically, I think this is in regards to, or at least one of these things in regards to him being able to, or trying to allow for older replays to be viewed and covered and casted. Older replays from patches ago. Aside from being a developer, also the organizer of SCL, StarCraft Evolution League. In the broader StarCraft landscape, he's a map maker, 3rd place for TLMC 17, 2nd place TLMC 19, author of Maganatha, owner of Team Hyper 1, home to 3 Point and formerly Hon Mono. So yeah, but a lot of this it's kind of weird. I don't know if we need to know much of this, but he's going into his own backstory, his own history here. Some of you may have seen me in live stream chats, particularly on Shizjik. Although I've been a member of Team Cthulhu for over a year now, only recently has the responsibility of maintaining multiplayer balance, and maps have been assigned exclusively to me. Other individuals who used to be involved with these tasks have since moved on from the team. I think this is the most important. Out of all, this is the most important part, and this is also most likely why he is talking about himself in such a way. He's also the author of the previous blog post, which was written in a very interesting way as well. I think we said that it looked like it was written by a clown. I still stand by that, by the way. But here he speaks on how apparently he does have a greater role here as a part of the team in regards to multiplayer balance. I say a greater role. He says specifically that multiplayer balance and maps have been assigned exclusively to him. Up until this point, from my understanding, in regards to StarCraft Evolution, they've had a team working on this with multiple different people, multiple different perspectives, multiple different opinions, and kind of like conflicting ideas, which I would say is a good thing. Or maybe not always conflicting, but but I think it's always a good thing to have multiple people to bounce your ideas off of, to challenge certain ideas as well, to be able to kind of ideally produce the greatest result. To me, this is a little bit concerning. It's a little bit concerning hearing that one person has exclusive control over balance and over maps. On the one hand, I know that Hyper One is very dedicated and very passionate about StarCraft Evolution, so I don't think there's any like ill will by any means. I don't think there's any kind of malice involved or anything like that. But in general, I do think that it's a negative thing to hear one person have that much control over something, whereas something like this would always benefit from having other people involved, having other ideas to bounce off of, to make sure that, to check you as well, to make sure that, you're actually pushing things in a good direction, to be able to speak up if something maybe is going too far, if something isn't going far enough. So yeah, this is a new update. This is a new change happening to StarCraft Evolution, and not saying that this is going to lead to bad outcomes, but it can, which is why the word that I use is concerning more than anything. And we'll see what happens with this. But at least they're being transparent about that as well, I suppose. The goal of balance updates. So the goal of multiplayer updates is to provide the best possible gameplay experience, the highest level play. Naturally, we should ask, what exactly is the highest level play? I don't know if we need to go this in depth as to what the goal is, but sure. I think it's kind of a given. The common answer is whoever plays in tournaments. That is a reasonable response. However, even among tournament participants, there is a wide skill gap ranging from those in Master Leagues to top SSU pros like Dark, Classic, Shin, and beyond. I think this is, I do think that this is broaching a subject that is very unique to StarCraft Evolution. For those that are watching StarCraft Evolution, you will know that there is a very big skill gap between certain players. And the reason for this is, I would say, just because of their player base. They have drawn upon the StarCraft 2 player base, and only a select few of them have actually made that crossover from SE2 into StarCraft Evolution. Some of them here were just listed. When it comes to Protoss, when it comes to the top Protoss players, I would say Classic and Hero. They're the two best Protoss players in StarCraft Evolution. And there's a very, very big skill gap between them and all the other Protosses. And that is also partly because it's not like they've brought over Showtime or Zaun or Max Pax or Christiana. They've got Geralt, they've got Skillus, true, which are two other really good players. But like, there's a lot of if we're looking at the StarCraft 2 Pro player bases, like a lot of the top Protoss players that are kind of missing from that. And because of that, there is a bigger skill gap between, the top 2 and top 3, for example. Same with Terran, I would say. For Terran, Bjorn, he made the switch. I think Bjorn is the only top Terran that's made the switch. I would say Bjorn and Spirit, and I would place them as 1 and 2, Bjorn and Spirit, who hasn't crossed over. Kjor hasn't, Bunny hasn't, Maru, Ryung, Clem, Hero Marine, right? So if you're missing all these other top players, then the gap between the top 2, even the top 1 in StarCraft Evolution and the rest, there's a bigger gap there, unfortunately. For Zerg, it's the same. For Zerg, it was Dark and Shin. Dark retired, now it's just Shin. I would say that Shin and players like 3Point and Wayne, there's maybe less of a skill gap between them, but right, like there's no Serral, there's no Solar, there's no Raynor. Again, like you're pulling from a limited player base, and not everyone has only a select few have made the crossover, and yeah, because that, it makes it even more difficult to really gauge balance, because if Bjorn is winning everything, well, I mean, who can challenge him? I would say Classic and Shin, typically, right? The Classic and Shin would be the ones to stop him, and if everyone else is struggling, is that because of balance, or is it because of player skill level, right? Like it's definitely a hard thing to try to consider, to try to balance, and to try to take into consideration, for sure. Like, I can definitely understand like the challenge that this poses. Some might ask that if we can balance the game at this level. Unfortunately, we cannot. SE2, I mean, they're going through it. SE2 pros play SE2 for a living and typically approach StarCraft even more casually. This is true. They may not read patch notes or even remember participating in previous SE Evo tournaments. I think this is specifically a comment. I don't know if this is necessary to go this deep into it. If you remember, when we casted Hero, this was a couple of months ago, we casted Hero competing, and I asked him, I was like, hey, have you played like this mod before? Like what's happening? He's like, oh, I'm just playing for fun. This is my first time playing. Then we checked, and I think he played in the Chijik tournaments like last year, but like he didn't remember. Like it was just
Look, there were just so many changes, he thought it was a different mod, okay? I'm gonna
exactly. So he had no idea. He's like, no, yeah, it's my first time playing SE Evo. It's like, that's not true. I think that's kind of what in reference to, I think. When top SE2 pros compete with each other in SE Evo, SE2 pros bring years of familiarity with the SE2 races that the players with the brutal pieces lack. So these matches are unfair, and we should be wary of drawing balanced conclusions from them. True, I would agree with this. That's not to say that a full-time SE2 pro cannot play the brutal races well at all. In most cases, when a top SE2 player faces off against a top SE Evo amateur, the SE2 pro wins due to superior mechanical skill. It is also not to say that the SE2 pros who try SE Evo have no strategic depth. In particular, Dark and Classic are displayed brilliant and innovative play. However, one reason or another, the majority of top SE2 pros have no interest in SE Evo. To balance the game around players who are mechanically skilled and understand its strategic depth, then what level do we balance at? Quantifying skill here is not easy, but the cohort of top regulars in SE Evo tournaments play at around an SE2 MMR of 5.8 to 6.2k. Cool. Yet some full-time SE2 players nevertheless keenly interested in SE Evo, or enough to play in tournaments regularly or ask about balance updates, so their involvement is more than just casual. But yeah, it does pose like a difficult challenge here for those that are balancing, just because of the skill level of certain players and the skill disparity. Design changes and historical accuracy. Historical accuracy of SE Evo units to their Brood War incarnations is central to SE Evo's success. After all, if the SE Evo Brood War units were not historically accurate, SE Evo would not be able to call itself the Brood War vs. SE2 mod. Opinions differ as to what constitutes historical accuracy. Undoubtedly, certain memes are strong, such as the Vulture costing only 75 minerals or the Scout being useless. However, the developer team believes it is best for units to fit their intended role and do so well, and have a familiar look and feel to how they were in Brood War, rather than matching them their level of viability. I think this is mainly in regards to the Scout, for example. The Scouts typically, historically, has had pitiful anti-ground damage, but that has been changed for design and balance purposes, where the Scout is now a little bit stronger when it comes to anti-ground, so it's more viable to open Scout and to be safe opening a Scout as well, against something like an all-in. I think they're just about to talk about that. For example, Philosophy ultimately resulted in the 1.15.1 version of the Scouts, which is certainly not a useless unit. Of course, there are certain specs we strive to preserve wherever possible, like HP and build cost, but these are secondary to replicating the overall look and feel of Brood War. Map size, its effects on balance. Some of our players feel that the official SE Evo complete ports of Brood War maps are too large. Interesting. There may be some truth to this. In order to port Brood War maps faithfully, the map-making team relies on scale grids placed on map overview images. The ratio historically used by the team is that of a 128 by 128 map in Brood War becomes 152 in SE2. The ratio is based on Kesper's fighting spirit. Once we used this size for our first few ports, it became our standard, and most of our ports of 128 maps are 152 in SE2. We decided that it compensated well for units being generally slightly faster and attacking further due to engine differences. It also avoids the issue of adjacent spawns on 4 placeable maps having too short a rush distance. Interesting. I would say that it's interesting to hear that some players are complaining that they're too large just because of the rate of all-ins that we're seeing. Again, when it comes to this patch, a lot of it is going to be ideally addressing the strength of all-ins and allowing for more reactive and defensive play to be able to survive the early game to force longer games. And personally, I haven't really seen enough of longer games to comment that the maps are too large. Maybe they are, but yeah, it's interesting that that's something that players are discussing, I should say. Now having been on the map-making team for a year and seeing how official ports have played out, I'm mostly pleased with how they performed, though in hindsight a slightly smaller map size might have been helpful, and what is currently a 42-second cross-spawn rush distance could have been instead 40. And the current balance paradigm could possibly handle 30 to 31-second rush distances. Okay. So he's just saying that they might, adhere to this feedback and make the maps a little bit smaller. Cool. Resizing current maps is unfortunately not possible. The multiplayer map-making team now consists solely of me. This was kind of addressed earlier, but this also confirms that looks like Hyper One, he's not just the only person balancing the game, but he's also the only person porting maps. That's what it seems like here, at least currently. Which is also a concern, but I've also heard concerns about base density on Brood War maps being too low, and that they should be much closer to that of Legacy of the Void maps. Interesting. While basically, I believe base density, he's just referring to how spread out bases are, which is true. In Brood War maps, if you've taken note, a lot of bases are just so spread out, which do make them much more difficult to defend. That is often one of the biggest criticisms about a lot of the Brood War maps is just how spread out bases are. That is a part of Brood War, so that's also a hard thing to try to approach. Be like, is this a negative thing? It does make it more difficult to defend some of these bases, but like, is that a bad thing? Is that a good thing? What do we want out of the game? What do we want out of StarCraft Evolution? Brutal maps are designed with low base density, partly because of the economy rewarding players for spreading the same number of workers across more bases. Legacy Void maps are designed with high base density, partly because bases are continually mined out half of their minerals fields early. Trying to scale down a brutal map down so that there's an equal base density to that of Legacy Void map would simply yield an unplayable small result. I mean, yeah, we just kind of mentioned that. I mean, it's important to take note that the economy is different in StarCraft Evolution than it is in regular SE2. There are more minerals per base, so the need to mass expand is lessened in StarCraft Evolution already. I feel like we could have just mentioned that. But yes, they're discussing it here. All standard mineral fields have 1,500 minerals instead of 1,800 and 900. Bases don't mine out faster. Yeah, they discuss this. I don't know how necessary. Yeah, it's weird. I would imagine that they've just been asked this question a lot recently, so that's why they're trying to clarify some things in this blog post, even though these are things that have already been discussed in the past. From here, they go into core changes. As explained in the 1.16 PTR 1.1 blog post, core changes are our best reflection of original data in Brood War. This was already discussed previously. Some of you are likely wondering how we can be certain about our accuracy. That's cool. Right. Moving on. A final note on balance changes. Some of these changes are accompanied not only by explanations, but also primarily findings or thoughts from playtesting. I include these findings inside parentheses. In some cases, they might reflect post-published clarity in instances where a patch was too ambitious or unfocused, rather than simply looking for problematic changes. I would also like to eliminate those which were never needed in the first place. He's just explaining, like, I guess, some of his writings in regards to balance pack changes. We did speak on this last time as well, how a lot of the balance pack changes would often come with like very in-depth like details as to like interactions that they change. Although his writing style has been informal, I will ensure that my intentions of the patch are clear and readily available. Fans watching the PTR show match can more easily engage with the thinking behind the decision-making process. Certain changes in the next iteration of the PTR do not come as a huge surprise. These are purely first impressions. The next PTR iteration will not be implemented until a critical review of the show match gameplay is complete. With these in mind, we'll proceed with describing the balance changes. He didn't explain what a degenerate rush is, though. No. There was no explanation.
We will never know.
No. We'll never know. It's fine. It's just a bit informal. Okay, interesting. Terran change. Okay, so now we can get past this. But again, like it feels like maybe there was some feedback given, or maybe a lot of questions were posed regarding the mod itself. So it does seem like they felt the need to like go through this and to try to explain themselves, explain their philosophy, explain their direction of the mod, to go into a little bit of finer details. I would imagine that they probably won't do this again. But like I guess it's good to like to lay all of this out, especially when it comes to now like a new person coming within power of like the balance, the balance of the game. So now that like Hyper One has taken this role, he's like, okay, let's like set all this foundation first before stepping into this role, I suppose. Terran changes. Siege tank. Decrease Mjolnir 120mm shot cannon attack period from 3.975 to 3.92. The initial response to the siege tank nerfs included concerns about Terran being unable to defend against 200-200 Rotor timing attacks. Although the siege tank clearly seems too strong as part of a 200-200 Brood War army, it'd be too weak against such timing, so this nerf has been reduced slightly to be more conservative. Wraith. Which, okay, cool. When it comes to a lot of these changes, a lot of these details, like I'd have to take, like we did mention in the previous patch as well, I have to take them at their word for it, just because, especially when it comes to some of these amendments, like I'm not too certain where some things are too far or some things are not far enough. Like I just kind of have to place my faith in their own analysis, like we did say last week. Wraith, decreased burst laser attack range from 4.5 to 4. The 1.16 PTR 1.0 release gave the Wraith more damage in exchange for slightly reduced range. This change further discourages massing the Wraith for direct combat. So they're trying to deter mass Wraith. Cool. Dropship. HP decreased. If you recall, they did increase the HP of the dropship in the previous patch to compensate for its immobility. Looks like they're trying to temper that a little bit. While the dropship could use a HP buff, a 50 HP increase seems excessive at the time, especially considering the dropship's already reduced 50 gas cost, so extra 30. So yeah, they're just this is quite similar. Basically, all these changes are quite similar, where they're just like kind of stemming some of their changes a little bit, not being as extreme. Specifically for the tank, the Wraith, and the dropship. Zerg changes. Overlord decreased research time from 120 to 100 for ventral sacks. Interesting. Decreased speed of pneumatized carapace. Overlords already fixes the issue of flying Defiler guessing games. Basically what they're referring to here, and to be fair, like there's a lot to get into for this. Basically, in StarCraft 2, if you're familiar with the dynamic in PvT in StarCraft 2 of avoiding EMPs, right? Of keeping your Reavers in a shuttle, or I should say High Templar in a shuttle to drop storms and to keep them safe from EMPs. It's similar here. The problem is that because Overlords are so common, there are so many Overlords to guess where is a Defiler. Where is a Defiler? Is in this Overlord, this Overlord, this Overlord, and that can make it more difficult to get ready for EMPs, to snipe Overlords, to focus them down, to try to avoid those Defiler drops that occur from the Brood War side of things, where they're dropped in to throw down Microbial Shrouds or to Plague. So there's like a different issue here, that because Overlords are so much more common, it's so much more difficult to find the Defiler, to know where they're going to be dropping from, which one they're in, and to shut them down. So here they're trying to kind of lessen that. And they did so previously by reducing the speed of pneumatized carapace. So the Overlords are slower. Looks like they've retracted the nerf to the research time, though, to compensate. Spore Colony, adjusted attack damage from 15 plus 5 versus mechanical to just a flat 20. Okay. So this specifically is going to affect Mutaplay. They were actually making this a little bit weaker against Mutas, which we did point out previously. The Brood War Muta cost change is being reverted. Oh, that's a future change. Okay. So the concern of Brood War Spire play being too advantage over SC2 Spire is less pressing. Therefore, there is no need to nerf the Spore Colonies against SC2 Mutas. Okay. Lurker. Decreased Lurker morph cost from 75.75 to 25.75. Decreased total Lurker build cost from 150.100 to 100.100. Okay. Interesting. That's kind of crazy. The difficulty of defending against a large number of SC2 Terran Bioforces remain one of the main struggling points of Brood War Zerg in the 1.16 PTR. This change reduces the cost of the Lurker and ambiguously rather than lukewarmly. Okay.
Like those are some lukewarm balance changes.
Oh my god. I don't think I've ever seen the word used in such a way. Okay. That's fine. That's fine. It's crazy. Okay. Sorry, just caught me off guard. That's expected. Zerg's defensive posture against his two bio play is rock solid. Maybe too solid at the very least. With such cheap lurker. Wait, what? S2 Zerg's defensive posture against his Brood War Zerg against his two bio play is rock solid. Maybe too solid at the very least. With cheap lurkers, additional buffs to the Sunken Colony, it may be unwarranted. Okay, this is like a developer note talking about like concerns that they have. This I like. I like this little developer note. That's good. I like my balance changes lukewarm and soggy. I just don't know what I just read. That's crazy. Spire. Decreased build costs from 200 200 to 200 150. Zerg players had a difficult time opening with Spire at all. Reducing the gas costs should allow for Spire openers to be more viable, affecting the mutual exclusivity of Lurker and Spire tech when entering the mid-game. Mutalists adjusted the cost, is now from 125.75 to 100. Okay. Decreased build time from 33 seconds to 30, and increased attack damage from 9 to 10. Jesus. Zerg players reported not having enough minerals to spare when opening with Aspire. Zerg players must rely on so many Zerglings and Sunken Colonies in the meantime to exchange some gas costs for minerals. Actually hurt Zerg here. Rather than a cost buff, a reduction in build time should slightly improve late game muta switches. Scourge adjusted attack damage 95 plus 15 versus mechanical to 105 plus 5 versus mechanical. So the base damage here of Scourge has been increased. Decrease attack damage increase per upgrade from plus 5 to plus 3. So they do gain a little bit less from upgrades. With the Spire muta cost normalized, the Scourge returns to killing Corruptors in 2 hits. Its damage has been restructured to avoid ever killing mutas in 1 attack, or Broodlords in 2 attacks. This damage rework is not strictly necessary, but I originally felt it was justified by giving the opponent fair opportunities to kill Scourge. We will see how it pans out in the show match, assuming that we get to see that ZVZ interaction, or just the Scourge interaction. The Guardian adjusts morph cost from 25 125 to 50 100. Accounts for the change cost in Mutalisk. Devour morph cost from 75 75 to 150. Likewise, same reasoning. They've decreased the attack damage from 24 to 18. Damage versus armored from 32 to 25, so they've decreased in the overall damage. Decreased attack damage increase per upgrade from plus 4 to plus 3. I want to say that a lot of these sound like reversions to changes that we had in the previous patch. Decreased attack period and decreased attack range as well. These changes revert some existing buffs from the Devour Brood War stats in exchange for a hefty attack period reduction, allowing the Brood War to properly fill its original role as a debuffer support. If you remember, we actually brought this up in the previous patch, how the Devour, you're not meant to mass them. Like, they don't do too much burst damage or anything like that. You're not meant to mass them. They're meant to be like a supportive units where they deal more damage over time, just because of the debuff that they apply. They apply a debuff that does increase the amount of damage that the unit takes. So it was kind of weird that they had buffed the Devourer previously to do even more damage, which, yeah, it felt a little bit weird, which we expressed last time. So here it looks like they're making these reversions, which is cool. Decrease spawn broodling research cost from 150 150 to 100 100. Decrease spawn broodling research time from 100 to 75. The cancellation of spawn broodling if the queen dies before the spell connects already allows for much counterplay. Further nerfs are unnecessary for now. Cool. For those who are curious, there was the change in the previous patch was that if a queen dies before the spawn broodling goes off, then it denies the spawn broodling, then it denies the spell. They didn't think they needed to go far. They didn't think they needed to go farther there. Adjust the cost for the Ultra list from 200 150 to 175 175. With cheaper lurkers drastically reducing Viscine gas scarcity, Brood War Zerg should have no trouble entering the late game in a viable economic position. So there's no need for this change. Okay. So they've increased the gas cost of the Ultra. Then that changes. Oh, that just switches here to Protoss changes. Dragoon increased cargo size from 2 back to 4. If you remember, this is one of the crazy things that we pointed out in the last patch. Basically, in the last patch, Dragoons, they're big boys, baby. They're big boys, and you can typically only fit 2 into a shuttle. But then they reduced the size to make it so you can actually fit 4 instead of 2, and now they're going back on it. Again, it was a crazy change to allow for if you remember, we made the meme about Dragoons being like a transformer and like folding their legs in to fit into the shuttle. But it looks like now they're getting rid of the ability for Dragoons to do that. They can no longer fold in. They're big again. The current PDR changes include buffs to Reaver drops. We should see how these play out in the early game. Protoss versus SC2 Terran first before pushing this change. There we go. This is not based on the actual size of 4 Dragoon drops or concerns thereof. Okay, so it does feel like they feel like like again, like drop play or Reaver drop play is already going to be, buffed in the upcoming change. So they don't feel the need to also allow for more Dragoon drop play to be viable as well. Reaver, decrease movement speed. Oh, okay. And decrease attack damage bonus, plus 60 versus shields to plus 25 versus shields. Okay. Some of the buffs to the Reaver happened because I did not understand the state of Brutal Protoss with S2 Protoss. Previous concern was the strength of 4-gate Blink. It came out because I watched too many games. What? This is such a personalized explanation. Okay. Yeah, okay. Too many games where the defender chose to expand with barely inadequate defenses, and not enough where the Brutal Protoss player chose a completely different opener. From this, I realized that it is important to consider how strategies are chosen not only in a single game, but also throughout a series and across tournaments. It's crazy. Yes. We must consider multiple matchups the same matchup in different series and different tournaments. It's true. Anyway, top Protoss amateurs seem to agree that Brutal Protoss. Anyway, just by the by, don't worry about it. Top Protoss amateurs seem to agree that Brutal Protoss is favored in the late early game to early mid game, particularly once Scarab damage kicks in. SG Protoss can take even fights in the mid-game once they have disruptors, but even getting there is difficult. It is not immediately apparent how to solve this, but a good first step seems to be lowering the initial anti-shield damage of the Reaver. Live 1.15 Reaver can kill an Adept in one hit and almost kill a Zelt or Stalker before Scarab damage research. Even one-shotting aside, the sheer amount of damage dealt drains early S2 shield battery NG quite quickly. This change is to reduce SC2 Protoss reliance on shield batteries, giving them necessary economic breathing room to grow into the mid-game. Again, this is a change that, as mentioned, at least when it comes to the bonus to shield, specifically for PvP, I mean, we have seen quite a lot of strength for sure when it comes to Reavers in the PvP matchup. So interesting change here. Is going to be quite a big one, and we'll see how it does impact the matchup. Dark Templar, increase attack damage bonus, plus 35 versus shields to plus 0. Okay, so we're doing more PvP adjustments here. Decreased attack damage bonus increase per upgrade to plus 2 versus shields to plus 0. Okay, so we're just removing the bonus to shields that DTs have. Scouts, decrease build costs. The poor scout. The scout has been changed so much over the past year. It's so many changes to the scout. Okay, decrease build costs. 275 and 125 to 200, 100. So it's going to make it cheaper overall. Increase build time from 49 to 50 seconds. Increase movement speed. So it's going to be a little bit faster. Increase anti-matter missiles attack period from 1.75 to 1.5, so increase the time it takes to get its shots off. Decrease dual photon blasters attack damage from 9 times 2 to 4 times 4. This is this anti-air. Decrease dual photon blasters attack damage plus 3 versus armor to plus 1 versus light. Okay, we're changing that entirely. Interesting. Decrease dual photon blasters attack damage increase per upgrade from plus 1 to plus 0.5. Decrease dual photon cannons attack damage from 4.5 to 4. Decrease critic thrusters movement speed bonus from 33.3% to 20%. Okay, there's a lot to get into here. The last change. The version of the Scouts in 1.16 had the original cost of the Scouts. However, it filled on an entirely different role closer to that of the Void Ray, rather than the Scouts' original role as a reconnaissance vessel. The change in role is undesirable, and the new cost was ultimately prohibitive. Therefore, this sets on a more conservative changes begins with the live 1.15 Scouts, which is something of a hybrid between the Corsair and the Oracle in terms of early game role. Like the Corsair, the Scout is viable for hunting overlords. Like the Oracle, the Scout is capable of work harassments. However, a couple of critical changes have been made. The Oracle contributes strongly to early game defense with its weapon and stasis ward ability, but the Scout does not, since its weapon is simply too weak. As described in the 1.16 PTR blog post, Stargate builds have a difficult time defending against Bailing and Ravager basal Lins. This is true. Let's see. In the version In the versions of 1.16 PTR prior to the 1.1 public announcement, the Scout was even stronger in anti-ground combat, and we saw that giving a strong weapon to the fast and durable Scout is problematic. For example, multiple Scouts could easily chase down a Cyclone and flee from Stimpack Marines. A mild speed reduction shifts these interactions in favor of the Scout's enemies while leaving the Scout fast enough to serve its scouting role. To further discourage massing the Scouts for direct combats, I think this is one of the more important kind of points here. Scout weapon range has been reduced down to its original Brood War value. This version of the Scout should still perform well against Banelings and kill the Ravager quickly enough to help dampen the potential of Ravager busts. It should also be a little better for worker harassment and general early defensive role. They didn't really touch too much on some of the changes from versus armored to versus. I guess they kind of touched on that when it comes to focusing down Banelings and less so against other units. So I guess they kind of touched on that here. But yeah, another kind of like big change to the Scout. I mean, it feels like hopefully they find a nice role for the Scout. It feels like the Scout, as mentioned previously, was a very niche unit in Brood War and had a very niche kind of purpose, but but like they're trying to make it a little bit more viable in other aspects, and they've been forced to have a lot of changes with the Scout as a result over the past year. Hopefully they're able to find a nice place for it, is what I will say. Again, to make Stargate openers a little bit more viable, to add a little bit more variety to Protoss openers in a lot of matchups. But we did see that this was becoming an issue in regards to how well Scouts could kite and how they could bully a ground army and ground units early on, especially in PvT for sure. So interesting to hear that they did make that adjustment. And that's the end of the PTR changes. Again, there's no degenerate rushes, Pappy. Oh my god, crazy. But overall, I mean, I have to assume that some of these amendments and some of these changes are a positive thing. When it comes to the overall direction of StarCraft Evolution, again, it's definitely, this does mark kind of like the beginning of a different kind of like era in regards to like the balance of the game and the direction of the game as well. Is this a good thing or a bad thing? The word that I used earlier was concerning. I think I would stick with that. I would say it's definitely a concerning kind of like change that has occurred. And hopefully, nothing necessarily negative comes of it. I mean, you could already see like some of the issues with what's happening. I think he said himself, right, in regards to one of the Protoss changes, which I found a little bit baffling. The Reaver change. He's like, he spoke about how like, oh, like based on what he had seen in certain games, like he had formulated a certain opinion. He wasn't really taking into consideration other games or other tournaments or other matches that were occurring in regards to the Reaver changes. Whereas that's where the opinion or the opinion, the ideas, the knowledge of another person would come in and ideally kind of like fill that hole in regards to what it is what it is you don't know, in regards to bringing up other kind of aspects of how a unit interacts with others. That's the benefit of having someone else to kind of bounce ideas off of and bring up other points as well, right? I say that, but it's also a bit of a luxury in saying that, because for all I know, them slimming down their team and only having Hyper One here, partly maybe because there's no one else to bring on, and maybe if there was, they'd be more than happy to expand their team. But as I mentioned, like this is mainly on a volunteer basis, right? Like a lot of people are devoting their free time to this, and it's hard to find people that are willing to do that, to jump onto the team and to provide their feedback and to be that dedicated and to be that invested into StarCraft Evolution. It's possible that those people don't exist. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. I would push to looking for said people. I hope that that's the case. I would hope that the people at Team Cthulhu are not just like complacent and being like, oh, like, maybe our team is like shrunken a little bit over time and we're not taking the initiative to look for people to replace those that we've lost, and they're content to just leave Hyper One to his own devices. I would hope that there is an initiative in regards to looking for other people to step in and to fill those roles and to help out in some way, even on like even on a more casual or even on a more part-time basis. I would hope that that's the case. I would hope that they're looking to do that and they're willing to do that, because that would would just benefit the project. That benefit the project. That benefit everything here to be able to have like other people come on board. As I mentioned, obviously resources are an issue, and dedication to the craft is arguably an issue as well. So it's not going to be easy, but I would hope that they're willing to invest into that and willing to take the time and effort to look for that sort of thing. Otherwise, some of these changes, that's where biases come into play. That's where limited exposure to certain aspects of the game come into play as well, like which we've already seen. Like, these are the issues that can come up, and not saying that like even if they had like a 5-player team working on this, that wouldn't be the case even then, but it lessens that, right? Like it reduces the chances of that happening, of that occurring. So overall it would just benefit the team, benefit the project. So yeah, we'll see what happens. The other downside of coming out like this is that it also it's also the issue that happened with StarCraft 2 initially, winding it back. If you remember, for a long time, the face of balance in StarCraft 2 was David Kim. I say the face of balance. It's still different though, because they still had a team. And it wasn't just David Kim doing everything on his own, but he was the face for the most part. And here, like up until this point, from my understanding, the balance team was more faceless because it was a team, right? Like it was like unified decisions coming together to come to certain conclusions. Here, like Hype One is very much so putting himself out there as like the person making all the decisions. So whenever something good or something bad happens, it does kind of fall on Hyper One. It suddenly becomes like, he has that kind of ownership on things. So it's an interesting decision to like go in this direction and to kind of like to take that role, which I don't necessarily think is necessarily the best way of approaching things. I don't think that was even necessary. Even if he was the only person working on it, I don't know if it's necessary to kind of reveal that and to kind of again take on that role. But they've chosen to do that for the time being. And again, my only hope is that they're able to expand the team and able to work on this together just to benefit StarCraft Evolution. It's my hope. One could say that has been generated multiple times. Oh, true. So yeah, it's interesting kind of changes or updates here to StarCraft Evolution, and we'll keep you guys updated with what happens with StarCraft Evolution, with what occurs when it comes to these changes, when it comes to these blog posts. We'll keep you guys updated. We then have a bit of an addition here to this change as well, from Avex. Avex, he did create a thread. Avex, of course, he is a long-time map maker in StarCraft 2. He did retire from making maps for StarCraft 2 for many years. I want to say he stepped away like around 2015, like maybe early Legacy, like 2018-ish era of StarCraft. So it's been a couple of years. I was surprised to see him return, and specifically he returned for StarCraft Evolution. It looks like he himself was very enamored with StarCraft Evolution as well. But the thread is titled a small thread showcasing some of the work I did over the year during my time with StarCraft Evolution, implying that he's no longer working with StarCraft Evolution. But again, he was, I believe, in charge of porting a bunch of maps from Broodor into SE2. You can see here he worked on Citadel, Fighting Spirit, Monty Hall, let's go, Monty Hall, unreleased map, Polapoid, Blue Storm as well, let's go, Arcanar, and another unreleased map as well. From my understanding, I believe Avex was part of other things outside of just making these maps, but we spoke about how the team at StarCraft Evolution has been shrinking a little bit, and I think this does shed a little bit of light on that, showing off that Avex kind of did leave the team. But really cool to see some of the maps that he did work on. Wish Avex the best moving forward, and again, I would hope that StarCraft Evolution would be working towards filling that role and bringing more people on board. That would be my hope. As that does conclude our topics here for this week. That does conclude our topics. Now we can get into tournament results instead. We can jump into some more StarCraft Evolution. We can jump into a show match organized and run by the STC. This is the second one. The first one did feature the unknown player Dice, but here we have Shin versus Beyond in a best of 7 show match. And this was pretty intense and pretty one-sided, is what I will say. There were some really close games. I should emphasize there were some really intense, really close games. Even Blue Storm was very back and forth at times. I think Blue Storm might have been my favorite game of the series, but Beyond did claim it 4-0. I mentioned before that Beyond, again, he is the kind of strongest, or he is the strongest, the most experienced, the Terran player that has kind of switched over to StarCraft Evolution with the most accolades under his name, with the most success in his career, with his most time dedicated to StarCraft 2, and has been having a lot of success in StarCraft Evolution as well. I would say that Shin is currently the number 1 Zerg player, so it was a strong showing and a strong statement here from Beyond to take down Shin. One of my favorite parts about this show match was that they were reminiscing. If you tune into Beyond versus Dark in a lot of like Kung Fu Cups, for example, or other show matches, they do often like chat with each other, and they reminisce about about Brood War, about some of these older maps, the last time they played in it, and they have like a nice conversation while playing. Something similar happened here as well. I think it was for Fighting Spirit. I think Beyond, he opened up being like, yo, I remember playing on Fighting Spirit for the first time when I was in grade school in year 1. Like, like he was like just reminiscing about Fighting Spirit, and Shin, he was like reminiscing as well. So like, again, like they had like this fun little, not even banter, just like conversation while playing against each other. It was really cool. Like, I always find it really wholesome. Really wholesome. And congratulations to Beyond, of course, for claiming the win. And shout out to Shin for taking part and for making, the games as exciting as they were. Even though the score says 4-0, like a lot of the games are closer than that, for sure. So I do recommend it. Heading on over, it leads us into StarCraft Evolution Code A, number 7. This leads us into a more kind of like amateur side of StarCraft Evolution. And I believe this is one of the last SEL Code A's before the main championship. I think there's still one more Code A scheduled before the main event. And again, this is in a way, I almost said region locked, but it is restricted skill-wise here to make sure that some of these bigger names don't take part and don't dominate these tournaments. These are for some more up-and-coming players in StarCraft Evolution to foster that more semi-pro or amateur scene. And here we had Ateshi, we had Kurai Humor, we had Kot, we had Quantel, and Rare Breed. Rare Breed is a rare sight. I haven't seen it before, I'll be honest. I have not seen it before. Takes down Quantel 3-1 and takes down Kot 3-1 as well. A strong showing there from Rare Breed. And again, a play that I am not familiar with. I don't think I've seen them or noticed them in these brackets before. Great to see a newer and fresher face to the tournament scene. GG. GG well played. Shout out to Rare Breed for claiming that win. That leads us into our amateur tournaments. That leads us into the Amateur League Weeklies. For those that are curious, this is a regular weekly tournament that doesn't have any prize money, but it does give you points to like an end of season finals, which does have some prize money involved. But again, these weeklies, they are split up here between the leagues. We have the Initiate Weekly, which is for those that are between the leagues of Bronze and Platinum. Here we had Kid B. Oh, that's a Brazilian player. We had Kid B popping off. Okay, a player that we have casted before in the past. Takes down DJ Eber Cruiser 2-0. Takes down Milo. Does fall to Manshark in the upper brackets finals, but he does work his way back up. Takes down Saito and gets his revenge over Manshark 3-0. So big win there for Kid B. A player that we have casted in the past, again, is a Brazilian Terran player. GG. GG well played. Does claim that tournament. That leads us over into the Veteran Weekly. That leads us into the leagues between Diamond 3 and Diamond 2. We do have players that I have not seen before. Dortal does take down Glacius, takes down Lauren, and takes down possibly Maybe. Interesting name. 3-0 in the finals. 3-0 in those finals. But again, a player that I have not noticed in the past, so a bit of a newer face, at least in my eyes, does claim the win. Doesn't drop a single map in the tournament. Impressive play, impressive performance there from Dortal. That leads us into the Prestige tournaments. That leads us into the leagues between Diamond 1 and Masters 2. A lot more regulars here that we are aware of. We have Beast. We have Dizzy Dwarf. We have Arez as well. We had Beast going on a tear here, not dropping a single map. Takes down Havertz, takes down Medic, takes down Terran, takes down here Chuanet as well, 3-0. Again, not dropping a single map here. Dominant performance by Beast. Often we do see players threaten Beast, like Dizzy Dwarf or Adez, but the two players that I just mentioned, Beast did not play against. He did not play against Dizzy Dwarf, did not play against Adez. Am I crazy, Kuro? Dizzy Dwarf, he's usually Terran, right? He played Protoss.
Yes, Dizzy Dwarf is usually Terran. That's true.
Yeah. So I just realized one of the reasons why he had maybe a worse performance, he did play Protoss in this tournament. Curious as to why that happened. Again, he's a Terran main, but did off-race his Protoss. I'm curious what the off-racing rules are in this tournament, because there might be a reason for that. Depending on whether or not Dizzy Dwarf's Terran got a little bit too good. Let's see. Regardless, it does look like they do allow off racing. It says here, you must have an average of 4.671 MMR with 40 ranks games played with the race you choose to compete in. There you go. So there are rules regarding that. Regardless, congratulations to Beast for claiming the entire tournament. It's a very strong performance. That leads us into the elite version of this tournament. So we do have Inexorable. Inexorable takes down Victor 2-0. We have Meowdoom taking down Cobblestone 2-1, and Inexorable does claim the win 2-1 over Meowdoom, and then 3-0 over Meowdoom in the finals. Again, Inexorable, he's one of the bigger names. He is one of the bigger Terran players in Brazil, so strong showing there from Inexorable. But a shout out to Meowdoom for making a series out of it and for taking a game in the upper bracket finals. GG. GG, well played. That leads us into the Passioncraft Emerging Stars number 22. This is also a bit of an MMR restricted tournament for those that are 5.5k and below. Speaking of Inexorable, here he is. He does compete in this tournament alongside many others. We had him take down Gref 2-0, but he goes down to Minizerg. Minizerg takes down Inexorable, but does fall to F2 Click in the finals. 3-0, big win there for F2 Click. From my understanding, he is more of an aggressive, cheesy player, at least from my experience. But he does take down Minizerg, takes down Kneehead, takes down Meowdoom. And we have some regulars. We have some regulars from the other amateur events, but F2 Click does win the tournament and does earn a slot in OC Elite Rising Star number 16. GG. GG, well played. Big win there for F2 Click. That leads us into the Thermal 2v2 Circuit, a last chance qualifier 2025. Oh boy, again, the circuits, the main events for Thermal's 2v2 circuit is around the corner. It's going to take place after EWC, and this is the last chance players had to make it through into that main event. One slot was available for the main event, and we had so many competitors, actually. We had Nickrat and Geralt going in a deep run. We had Optimistic and Moja. We had Figaro and Risky. We had Replicant and Tiger. We had Jumi and Young Yakov, Dimaga and Starfish, DNS and Kelzer. Oh my Diego. And we had a new pairing that I wasn't expecting, Christiana and Aurigfire. Christiana and Aurigfire, I don't think they've really played in these 2v2 circuits in the past, so for them to pair up, they did well for themselves. They took down DNS and Kelzer, they went up all the way to the semis, they went down to Jumi and Young Yakov, who went to take the entire tournament, the entire qualifier, but yeah, it was an interesting pairing, and I kind of wish we got to see more of them earlier. Like, again, they joined forces for this qualifier, but they hadn't really come together in the past. So I kind of wish that we got to see more of them. Alas, they're going to be out here. From my understanding, though, I believe Thermal, in the interim leading up to the big main event, he is going to be hosting regular weekly 2v2 open cups. 2v2 open cups. They don't provide points to the main circuit, to the main events. We already have that confirmed, but it is a way to keep people interested in 2v2 in the lead up to the final circuit. So really cool to see. And I believe that 2v2 weekly is coming up tomorrow or even tonight. One of the two. Do check it out. Do check it out. But in the end, Young Yakov and Jumi, they claim the win 3-1 over Nickrat and Geralt. And Jumi and Young Yakov, they make it through into the main event. GG. Let's go. Let us go. That leads us into another 2v2 show match, I would say. We have Bratok and Mindovike up against Zardiant and Country. I'm not familiar with Country, I'll be honest. A player that I'm not really familiar with, but it looks like they did have a show match here, a best of 5, and it went all the way to the ace match. Very impressive. What I mean by that, Bratok and Mindovike, I rate them quite highly. They ladder a lot together. They 2v2 quite a lot. So for Zardiant and Country to take it to them and to force the ace match here, really impressive play, really impressive stuff. Fun fact, they actually used the custom map pool. As you can see, the maps that they played on are not the standard ladder maps. They played on Ulsan, they played on Nightscape, and they played on Debris Field. Debris Field is an island map. An island 2v2 map? That's crazy. Oh my god, when was this made? Says here, it was in the ladder map pool in 2010 in Wings of Liberty. No shot. No shot. Okay, wait. Sorry, my apologies. Looks like it was never... Sorry, it wasn't a 2v2 map. It was a 4-player map, which they just played 2v2 on. Okay. So, 4-player island map they played 2v2 on. Nightscape. This used to be in the ladder map pool. Yeah, I do remember Nightscape. This is a 2v2 map. We had Ulsan. This I haven't seen before. Oh, no, actually, I might have. Yeah, 2v2 ladder, 2018, 2019. I think I've seen this map before. I don't think I've played on it. But it was around for almost a year. But again, some older 2v2 maps. Really cool to see them being a little bit more creative when it comes to what maps they were using here. And Underground Goldmine. That might be like a TLMC map. It's hard to say. But regardless, GG, Black Duckling and VK, they do claim it in the end, but just barely in that best of 5. They barely do claim the win. That leads us into our show matches here. Oh, Babu. Let's go. We had Babu in 30 June Cup. That's a lot of words were said, and I'm not too sure what I just read, but it's a June Cup. Looks like I don't think they've been... Oh, hold on. There's a lot happening. It says the Babu in 30 June Cup, but if you look at the Wikipedia URL, it says Monkey Fights, number 1. So I'm a little bit confused. But apparently the organizer of the event is Hacker's Top. Okay. A player that we know. A random player. A Ukrainian random player. And yeah, for him to be the organizer of the event is something that I wasn't quite expecting. But now the name makes more sense. Because Hacker's Top does nothing but cheese. God damn it. Looking at the... Hold on. Does Babuin, does that translate to monkey? Is that what I'm... It looks like, I think that's meant to be baboon, but that makes sense. That makes more sense. In the end, we did have Wolfuxus take down Adam Silas 2-1 in the finals, though. And yeah, a bit of a random tournament, but a solid prize pool here as well. And yeah, really cool to see. GG, well played. We'll see if we get some more monkey cups. Curious. As that wraps up our, at least, June Cup. We'll see if more arrive in the future. That leads us into the Shin King Team League 2025 Spring Edition. This, of course, is a team league that's been running almost the entire year at this point. Did begin back in April, so it's been a couple of months, and the playoffs have been commencing. We just had the quarterfinals. Quarterfinals did conclude. We had Elpis taking down his 4-1. Oriana took down TATP 2-0. Oh, it's all cool formats. Oh, they've changed the format to all kill for the playoffs. So Oriana takes down TATP, takes down his next opponent 2-0. He does go down to Kingslayer. Lemon takes down Kingslayer, and Lemon takes down Kingslayer in the revive match as well. So strong showing there from Elpis. I mean, Elpis, we do favor them to be even the favorites in this tournament. I say that PCEC and Starlight Twinkle are also heavy hitters as well. And it looks like the semifinals are going to be in 2 days, and the grand finals will be in over a week. So next week in the PondCast, we'll have that update for the semis. Best of luck to all the teams. Best of luck to all the competitors. That leads us into the Sunrise Cup 205. This is a weekly open cup. Weekly open. This is a weekly tournament for the Chinese scene, for the Chinese players. And we did have Nanami. Nanami Chiaki does go on a tear once again. I want to say Nanami has won like the past 3 Sunrise Cups. It's crazy. Just double checking. Yep, Nanami took 204 and also took 203 and 202. Also won 200. Gee, how many has he won in a row? Oh my god. Okay, 202. So for the past 3, almost 4 weeks at this point, or now I should say, now 4 wins in a row. Nanami Chiaki takes down Young Zest 3-2. Does go all the way to the ace match. I would say that Young Zest is, would I even say favored? I think I might go that far. Young Zest, he's a strong player in his own right. Doesn't often compete in these tournaments, is what I will say. Young Zest, he's more of a rare sight in the Sunrise Cup. But he does pose a threat, does make it to the finals, does fall in the end, but again, did make for an ace match. So GG. GG well played. Nanami Chiaki does claim the win over Young Zest. GG well played. That leads us into the Legacy Weekly Japan of 461 prospect. From here, we do have Psyark. Oh my god, Psyark does claim. It's been a while since we've seen Psyark win. There's been a lot of competition here, but it might be because this is the prospect tournament. Prospect is kind of like Code A. It's like the Code A weekly for the Japanese region, and this is where Psyark does thrive. He takes down Hirikui, Kui, and Akira in the finals. GG. GG, well played. So shout out to Psyark for claiming the win here. That leads us into the Super 748, one of, if not the final Super 7. Again, just as a reminder, when it comes to the announcement that was provided, they did say that they were suspending in July. I don't know if that means beginning or end of July. That I don't know. So this might be the final Super 7, depending if they're still going to have a couple of final tournaments this month. So for the time being, I don't know if we're going to get any more, but we did have a show match between Byeon and Shin. Hey, we just had one in StarCraft Evolution, and now we have one in StarCraft 2, and looks like we have almost a mirrored result here. Byeon does take down Shin 4-1. There was more of a back and forth, more of a series here, but Byeon will still claim it. At least Shin was able to take a game this time, but again, we had a dominant showing out of Byeon in StarCraft Evolution. Now we're seeing it here in StarCraft 2 as well. GG. GG well played. Byeon does claim the win, and again, potentially the final Super 7, at least for some time. So congratulations here to Byeon. As that leads us into our regular weekly Open Cups. Looks like we didn't really have any updates in regards to the OC Rising Star or OC. Actually, I do want to say there's an amendment there. I believe Steadfast was casting the OC midseason playoffs this morning. Just as a heads up.
This morning?
Yes,
look, I did not check the schedule this morning.
Yeah, I say that because when we went live with our cast of DreamHack replays, Steadfast was live as well.
Yeah.
So he was live at the same time. So we will be going over
schedule,
that.
Actually.
No, it's on the TL calendar. It's there.
I see it now.
Yeah. So, Steadfast did cover the OSC midseason playoffs this morning, again, while we were casting, and we do have some updates here. Okay, let me know when we're good to show it off. But unless you want to do it after the Open Cups.
Hold on. Just gonna paste this here, and then I gotta do this, and then I have to...
Oh, God.
Shit, I opened the task manager instead of the thing I wanted to open. Everything is lagging now. So
no.
if the stream goes down, we will know why.
The stream is gonna crash. Oh no.
I am crashing.
For those who are curious, OSC King of the Hill is a big big online tournament. It's almost like the I Am Katowice of the online region, or the online scene, I should say. Basically, OSC, they partner with almost every online open tournaments and even some MMR restricted tournaments as well to provide points, to provide OSC points, which players accumulate over the year, and then they're invited into this big playoffs event. This is the mid-season playoffs just because we have the finale, the grand finals at the end of the year. So here we have all the active players in online tournaments. They have been invited, and they've been playing in a massive double elimination bracket, an insane bracket here. And are we ready to show off some of those updates?
Okay, we're kind of ready. Yes.
There we go. First, we have Shin versus Bunny. Bunny takes down Shin 2-0. Shin's been having a hard time. Shin, he just went down twice to Byeon. Now he goes down here to Bunny. I mean, TVZ, I can only assume that ARXs were involved. But TVZ has been in a bit of a rough place as of late, and Shin has been bearing the brunt of that. So Bunny does take down Shin 2-0. That leads into Chan versus Mana. Chan has been on a tear. Takes down Solar 2-1. Took down Cristiano 2-0. Takes down Mana 2-0 as well. Big wins here for Cham, a very impressive result. Cham advancing on a face-off against Bunny in the upper bracket finals. Speaking of, we actually had Skills versus Bunny. Bunny takes down Skills 2-1, went all the way to the ace match. Was a back and forth between Skills and Bunny. In the end, Bunny does advance on to that upper bracket. Meanwhile, that leads us to the lower bracket. To the lower bracket updates here, we had Jimmy did take down Pappy, did bring him down, advancing on a face-off against Art, and he also takes on Art 3-1 as well. Best of, I was curious. I was like, where are the best of fives? Like I'm a little bit surprised to see the upper bracket semis and upper bracket finals be best of threes, but the best of fives are all in the lower brackets. That's a lot of best of fives. And Jumi does take down Art 3-1, so Jumi is still in this. We then had Geralt. Geralt took down Moja 3-1, and we have Geralt versus Jumi poised to face off next week. And again, we do have weekly updates here for the OC mid-season playoffs. There's a lot to get into. There's a lot of matches happening at once. And typically we have different casters covering the event, whether it's ourselves, Steadfast, Dave Testa, Chicken Man, Wardy, and many others. Typically, we all kind of do our parts. And we also did cover some of these matches a couple of weeks ago. But yes, the event is still we're still far away from its conclusion. There's still a lot to get into, especially in the lower bracket. We have Trigger versus Nick Wright, Christiana versus Young Yakov, Showtime versus Percival, and Geralt versus Jumi, all facing off. And of course, Chairman Bunny in the final, or in the upper bracket finals, which is maybe not the pairing that we expected. I think a lot of people were looking at Solar, 100%. A lot of people were looking at Solar to make a deep run, but instead, Cham does rise amongst everyone else. So impressive play there by Cham. That leads us into the weekly tournaments. That leads us into CSO Cup number 81. This is a weekly open tournament, and we have Björn. Björn, he's very active when it comes to these weekly open tournaments. Björn takes down Replicant 2-0, takes down Cristiano 2-1, went to the ace match, true, and takes down Battle B 3-1 as well. That is a name I haven't seen in quite some time. I'll be honest, I was concerned that Battle B silently retired, not just because he hasn't been playing in tournaments recently, but also because if he was active, you would expect Battle B to have been at Home Story Cup. We'll get there to Home Story Cup, of course, but Battle B was not present. He is a local regional player. I know that Home Story Cup at times is scrambling to find players to actually compete in the tournament. I'm sure they would have been happy to have brought in Battle B. But again, he just hasn't really been active. Just double checking here. Jesus, I was not expecting this. I was expecting to have seen Battle B last play maybe at the beginning of the year. So checking Wikipedia, Battle B, the last time he competed in StarCraft before this CSO Cup, and the reason why I thought he had retired silently, he hasn't played since November of last year, Home Story Cup 26. Home Story Cup 26, where he had a good performance. He took down Skillus 2-0, he took down Fian 2-0. He had a good performance in Home Story Cup 26, and he hasn't played until now. Which again begs the question, why he didn't play in Home Story Cup 27? Because here he did well for himself. He took down Geralt. That's a big name in the European region. And he took down Nickeract as well. Like, Geralt and Nickeract, like, they're up there when it comes to Protoss and Terran in Europe. They're like maybe top 5, maybe top 6. In Europe, so really, really strong performance. Maybe top 5, maybe even top 4. For Battle B to bring both of them down does fall to Björn in the finals, but Battle B had a really good performance here, and this makes me a little bit sad to see that if Battle B's looking this good, if he didn't retire, if he's competing again, he wasn't at Home Story Cup. Now it's possible that the reason why he wasn't, and the reason why he hasn't been playing StarCraft in 9 months is maybe because maybe he was focusing on his studies, obviously, maybe focusing on other aspects of his life, and only recently, just after Home Story Cup, he's had the time to play StarCraft again. If so, it's a little bit unfortunate when it comes to timing. It would have been nice if he had returned just before Home Story Cup so he can actually be a part of Home Story Cup. That's the one thing I'm a little bit sad to see. But really cool to see him again. Again, really cool to see him again after 9 months. Again, I just assumed that he had retired, or I was concerned that he had retired. But no, he's still somewhat active. GG well played. Good performance there by Battle B, and congratulations to Björn. Congratulations. That leads us into the Monday Night Weeklies number 20. This is becoming a more regular tournament is what I will say, but did come together here. I love that you can see Rainer and Eba, they're colored gray because they race switched the hell out of their series. We had Rainer Terran versus Eba's Protoss, then we had Rainer's Protoss against Eba's Zerg, and then we had Rainer's Zerg against Eba's Protoss. So went to the ace match, went all the way to the ace match. Este Eba, Este Rainer. They're very similar to each other, which is always concerning. As we have Max Packs popping off. Oh my god. Max Packs takes down Jumi 2-0, takes down Classic, I meant to say, it was popping off. Classic takes down Jimmy 2-0, takes down Max 2-0. Of course, Classic, our recent GSL champion. Classic takes down Beyond 2-0, and then Beyond 2-1 in the grand final. So a strong showing here by Classic. He's not typically one to compete in these Monday Night Weeklies just because they're so bad for the Koreans when it comes to the time zone. But this week he showed up, he popped off, and he took it all. Really, really well played, really well won. Beyond, he also had a good performance. He took down Percival, took down Rainer, took down Rainer again, and did take a map off of Classic in the finals. So Beyond, he did really well for himself. Classic looking very in form in this weekly. What I will say is that for a lot of these weeklies, and for the past couple of weeks, Hero's been absent. Hero, he's usually very active in these online tournaments, but he has been a little bit less active as of late, and I assumed that he was not going to play in tournaments for the near future leading into EWC, but that is not the case, because that leads us into the Wardy TV Monday. This was actually the Wardy TV Monday Tuesday edition. This was the day after, 2 days after Home Story Cup, because Wardy was traveling, so he wasn't able to run this event at your regular time. I do apologize, I mentioned before, but we were unavailable to cast StarCraft yesterday, so we did miss out on the Wardy TV Monday and on the Pegasus Cup. Usually we're there for those tournaments, but not this week. So we could try to catch up. I say that our schedule is very jam-packed for the next couple of weeks, for the next month, so it's going to be hard to fit in like a replay cast of some of these events, but we might try to. Regardless, when it comes to this tournament, we had a Classic takes down Ryung 2-0, does go up against Shin in the semifinals. Shin does get his revenge. Shin has been bullied by Terran for the past couple of tournaments that we covered, but Shin takes down Beyond 2-1 and gets his revenge, takes down Classic 2-1, and goes up against Hero in the finals. Hero, he tours Mana, tours Max, and Hero, he takes down Shin 3-1 against Hero. He's been looking very, very strong and dominant in PvP, reflected here in this tournament. Both Hero and Classic have been able to take down. Again, Max has been really struggling in PvP as of late. It does feel like a matchup that he... Personally, I would say that it feels like Max has been unwilling, not even unable, but unwilling to try to adapt to the latest meta. Max has been doing more of the same for the past couple of years, and I would say that the meta when it comes to Korean Protoss and PvP in general has been shifting, has been changing, has been adapting, and Max has been staying stagnant. At least that's what we've seen for the past year. So we'll see if he does try to adjust, as he has been struggling against players like Hero, Classic, Estrella, Showtime. But Hero does take the 2-0, and Hero does take down Shin 3-1. GG. GG, well played. That leads us here into the Pegasus Cup number 38. That was, of course, played out yesterday. We had Max. He gets his revenge. Fun fact, I want to say the last 2 times that we've seen Max versus Estrella has been able to get the better of Max, but here he does get his revenge, does take down the other Max Angel, and takes down Beyond in the finals. GG here to Max. Clem has been absent. I don't know if you noticed, Clem wasn't here in any of these open cups. The reason for that, Clem is in Korea. He's in South Korea right now, and I spoke about how Hero's also been missing. True, you can see Hero also wasn't here. He was in the Wardy TV Monday, but he wasn't in Monday Night Weekly or Pegasus Cup. But players like Hero, players like Clem, Rainer, Cyril, they've all been practicing, training, and hiding builds and hiding their play, getting ready for Esports World Cup. That's also why a lot of players that I just mentioned did not travel to Home Story Cup, because they are, again, traveling to Korea and getting ready for that big offline finals, for that big end of year kind of world championship, I should say. We'll get into it. I should also emphasize that Cyril didn't go to Korea, but Rainer and Clem are in Korea. Trigger, he also got to Korea as well. I don't know if Stray is in Korea. That I'm a little bit less certain of. I'll have to double check. I was actually, if we casted Pegasus Cup, I was going to ask Stray about it, but we didn't cast, so I wasn't able to ask him. But yes, congratulations to Max. Shout out to Beyond for coming in second place, and also a big win and big upset for Percival. Percival takes down Gumiho 2-1. That's a big win for Percival. That's huge. So again, Percival, he also took a map off of Beyond, so Percival's also been improving quite heavily for the past couple of months. And that leads us into the Ozcraft Winter 2025. This was a big LAN event that happened in Australia. I will say that a lot of people were unaware of it, but it's a big event that happened in Brisbane. Great to see the Australian scene come together once again. And we had our boys there as well. We had some newer faces, though. We had Probe, we had Sato, we had Rise, we had Oreo, NXZ Ryan. He's back from Singapore. We had Azure. We had plenty of regulars that we know and love. We had Seiko, who traveled from the UK, who's been in Australia as of late. And based on the group, this was a 2-day event, I should emphasize. Day 1 was the group stage, day 2 was the playoffs, and we had Oreo popping off, we had an NXZ popping off. Oreo didn't drop a single a single series in the group stage. We had Probe, of course, returning and showing off his own prowess, his own dominance in Australia, as he has been the best in Australia for a long time, for many years. That led into the playoffs. I will say that coming into the playoffs, Oreo, he did have a bit of a harder time. Despite having a really strong showing in the group stage, he goes down early. It was double elimination, but he does go down to Rise, and he did go down to NXZ, so my heart goes out to Oreo. I know he was very upset. He was very frustrated. There were a lot of expectations coming into the playoffs, and he struggled in the playoffs. And my heart goes out to Oreo. My heart does go out to him. We had Azure. Azure takes down Seiko, takes down Rise, and Azure, he pops off against Probe in the upper bracket finals, taking him down 2-1. Crazy performance there by Azure, by Krug. Krug, he pops off. Probe, he does bounce back, takes down NXZ 2-0. Did take a map off of Azure and takes down NXZ once again 2-0 in the lower bracket finals to win it all with that comeback in the grand finals. So Probe, he does reclaim his throne as the best in Australia. Unfortunately, we didn't get to see Pig Jr. here. Like, Pig Jr., he was the last kind of like big champion that we had in ANZ Champs, or in many seasons of ANZ Champs. So it would have been fitting to have seen maybe a rematch there between Pig Jr. and Probe. But regardless, Probe does claim the win, does take down Azure, and hoping that we get to see some more Ozcraft in the future. I do hope to see some more Ozcraft. But again, a big win here for Probe. GG.
I will say there are some rumors about something happening soon, TM, with Ozcraft, but no details so far.
Yeah, exactly. There's some rumors, but if ever we get some confirmation, then we'll be all over that here on the PondCast.
Oh, there you go. So the post exactly said, expect another Ozcraft LAN before the end of the year.
There you go. Before the end of the year. Similarly, I guess along those lines, expect another Cheeseadelphia before the end of the year. There was also that kind of rumor that was also floating around as well. So really cool to see some more offline events happening in these other areas of the world. That leads us into another offline event happening in Europe. You know, we had Cheeseadelphia in the Americas. We had the Brazilian circuit in Brazil. We had Ozcraft in Australia, and now we have Europe catching up with a European offline tournament with Home Story Cup 27. Let's go. And again, we had quite a lineup here. We had 12 Protoss, 7 Terran, and 5 Zerg. As I mentioned before, unfortunately, BattleBee's return to StarCraft was a couple of days too late, so he was not a part of this event. It would have been great to have seen him a part of Home Story Cup, but he was not here. Likewise, you might be noticing some players missing. There's no Clem, there's no Raynor, there's no Serral, there's no Hero, there's no Maru. A lot of the players that I'm mentioning are preparing for Esports World Cup, so a lot of them did choose not to compete, not to take part in this tournament. Again, a lot of the Europeans are traveling to Korea. A lot of them are preparing for said event. Trigger as well, also traveling, also preparing. So because of that, the lineup here was a little bit different, but still some strong players, still a strong showing. Coming into this, we had a group stage. We had Ryung and Lambo making it through Group A. Again, I would say those are the two favorite players to make it through. We could have seen Mana cause an upset, and he was able to pose a threat to them, but in the end, Ryung and Lambo did make it through the group, make it through Group A. Shout out to Optimisc. Optimisc, I believe that was his first Home Story Cup, so really cool to see him make his debut and take part in this big event in Europa. That leads us into Group B. Group B, we had Showtime and Baby Marine. That was an upset. Coming into this tournament, coming into this group, Showtime and Spirit were favored, right? They were two favorite players to make it through the groups, but instead, Baby Marine, he popped off. He had a strong showing, took down everyone except for Showtime. And even then, did force the ace match. Against Showtime, so Baby Marine, he had a good showing, he had a good performance. coming out in second place. Spirit Upset did not make it through the groups. And also, I spoke about how Optimus was there for the first time. Lunacy, that was also his very first Home Story Cup. Lunacy traveling. We actually touched on this earlier about how he was translating. He has some decent English, so he was translating and providing for interviews for players like Zaun and players like SOS as well. Ryung, he's got some decent English himself, so he was able to hold his own. But Lunacy was there in case translations were needed. So he was there for them. And again, unfortunately, he did have a rougher time in the group stage. But again, showing there by Showtime and Baby Marine leads us into Group C. Here, another big upset occurred. We had Zaun popping off. Zaun was favored to win the entire tournament. He was favored to claim it, but instead of a laser, or instead of Geralt, who I would rate higher than the player that made it through, we had the content man himself. We had Uwu Thermal making it through in second place out of Group C. Crazy result out of Thermal. He had a really strong showing. He had some we were lucky enough to cast his matches against Geralt. He had some really impressive play against Geralt and against a laser as well. He memed against a laser. He went Mass Reaper. Shaking my head, did go Master Reaper and did cheese the hell out of a laser. And again, he had a really, I want to say, impressive performance against Geralt. Really impressive play, really fast, speedy play out of Thermal. I was very impressed by his TVP, and that did also lead into the playoffs as well. We'll get there. But yeah, shout out to Thermal, surprising many making it through the group stage. In Group D, we had SOS and Hero Marine. This, in my mind, was more of a question mark. Like, Big Gabe, in my mind, was the favorite player coming into this. And I wasn't too certain where to place SOS amongst Hearthstone specifically, and how to rate them. But no, SOS, he was looking pretty terrifying himself. Yeah, SOS, he popped off. He came out in first place. Hero Marine in second. Likewise, shout out to Shino. This was Shino's first Home Story Cup. It was his first time. And yo, the French crowd was so hyped. That one of the highlights of the tournament was seeing Shino versus SOS. And they went the distance. They had a crazy back and forth, Shino and SOS. I want to say, I do recommend checking out that VOD, especially on the mainstream. And the French crowd was going wild. They were singing the national anthem. They were singing the French national anthem for Shino during that series. It was crazy. And again, Shino, he played well for himself. I know that he did make a tweet about it. He definitely made some memories, some fun, some good memories at Home Story Cup, and happy for Shino. I'm happy for him. GG. GG well played in the NSOS, and Hero Marine do make it through, and that led into the playoffs. Here, I want to say that, Thermal versus SOS was a really strong back and forth here. You can see that we were the B stream. I didn't get to mention that. The main stream was going on. We were the official B stream, and we actually casted SOS versus Thermal. And Thermal, he started things off with a win. He had a really strong, aggressive style in TVP, and SOS had a really hard time keeping up. The series was going back and forth. Thermal did whip out his Protoss, and I'll be honest, he almost won against SOS with his Protoss. Like, he was ahead. He was ahead on Tokamak. Thermal, he had a greater position, but he ran out of steam. He was playing almost all in, and in the end, everything kind of fell apart and fell in favor of SOS. But that was a really intense series, and I can definitely see a world where Thermal could have won that, to be honest. He could have won that, could have taken that. It was very close, but in the end, SOS does claim it. We had Showtime versus Lambo, a very intense back and forth, went all the way to the ace match, and Showtime did barely take down Lambo 3-2. We had Zaun versus Gabe, also very close, also went all the way to the ace match, but Zaun does barely take down Gabe at 3-2 as well, and Ryung takes down Baby Marine 3-0. So some really hype, some really close matches were taking part in the upper bracket quarterfinals. Unfortunately, only double elimination from the upper bracket semis going forward. So Lambo was eliminated, Thermal, Gabe, and Baby Marine were all eliminated as well. They were all taken out in the upper bracket quarterfinals. Then we had Showtime. Showtime takes down SOS 3-2 initially to face off against Zaun. Also brings them down 3-1 as well. So really strong showings there from Showtime. Unfortunately, because of all these PvPs, he did have to show his playoff. He had to show his playoff. He did have to reveal a bunch of his builds, a bunch of his strategies, and over time, players got accustomed to him. Zaun took down Ryung. I remember Zaun being very apprehensive, or I should say just really was a little bit sad. He expressed a little bit of sadness because he actually knocked out Ryung in Star Zagora, and also here as well. Like, he had to play against his teammates more specifically. He had to knock out his own teammates. SOS did finish Ryung off in the lower bracket semifinals. Zaun took down SOS, and then we had the Zaun versus Showtime rematch, which this time went more heavily in favor of Zaun. And again, unfortunately, Showtime, I mean, it was a battle of endurance as well, but Showtime, he had to reveal a lot of his PvP throughout that bracket, and Zaun was able to get the better of him in the end to win the entire thing. Congratulations to Zaun. Congratulations. And again, he was the favorite player coming into this tournament, but Showtime did pose a big threat and even did beat him in the event as well. So really cool to see that back and forth between Zaun and Showtime. GG, well played. GG, well played. And again, I do recommend checking out the VODs. We are going through some of these replays. We were live casting. We were the B stream for this event, but there were a bunch of matches that were never casted. Again, for the group stage, there were 3 series happening at once, and there were only 2 English streams. So we are taking the initiative to go over the replays that were never casted in English, and we've been covering them here on the channel. This morning, we went over Group A and some of Group B, and tomorrow we should be live with Group C. And then we'll be having another broadcast, and again, we'll catch up with all the matches that we otherwise missed out on. That is the plan here moving forward for the CranKy Ducklings. Otherwise, that leads us into the upcoming events. If you want to take part in some of these tournaments, even if you're an amateur player, not even if you're a pro, but there is a sign-up list, !sign-up list in the chat. We do have links available here for the KSL this weekend, for MSO, Sunrise Cup, the Fusion Esports League, Krakow qualifiers. We should have emphasized that, but yes, the Fusion Esports League qualifiers are right around the corner in a couple of days, for the big event coming around the corner as well. So there's a lot of StarCraft going on. There's a lot of Fusion Esports League qualifiers. We have Sparkling Tunic Cup and much more to come as well, and New Thermal's 2v2 event, 2v2 weeklies, which I think are coming up or underway. So you can check out the sign-up list, and if you want to support us here on the CranKy Ducklings, you can do so via Patreon, !Patreon in the chat. Our Patreon is designed to fund our tournaments. Specifically, 100% of the money on Patreon goes towards the players, goes towards the prize pools for our tournaments. So if you want to help us grow the Sparkling Tunic Cup, Sea Duckling Open, and Master Swan Open as well, you can do so via Patreon. Our next goal after this one that we're trying to reach is then to start paying admins and casters, but for now, 100% of the money all towards the players. So thank you so much for the support to all of our current patrons and to our future patrons as well. Thank you so much for all the support. Another thing that we should actually discuss, by the way, is the RSL, the Revival StarCraft League. That is actually currently, the playoffs have begun. The playoffs, they just now began. They're currently underway. The playoff bracket is currently underway, and they're playing out as we speak. We're going to give them a raid. And I guess next week we can go over the results. And get into finer detail as to the Revival StarCraft League, as this event is going to be running for the next 2 weeks. So best of luck to all those competing in the RSL. And again, we are going to be giving them a raid, so give them some love, give them some support for those that are currently covering and casting the event. Otherwise, thanks for watching, and a big shout out to Kuro as well. Kuro is the producer of the event, is able to make sure that everything runs as smoothly as possible, so big shout out to Kuro. Again, you can follow myself at light_VIP. I have not been able to to stream recently, just because we've been so busy casting. And again, when it comes to our broadcasting schedule here, our next cast is going to be in around 12 hours time, or 11 and a half hours. We're going to be live with Home Story Cup Group C. Again, there's a lot of Home Story Cup to go through. And, of course, we do have the Polish Championship qualifiers for the Fusion Esports League. We have Master Swan Open. We have Sparkling Tunic Cup. We have more FEL. And we have, of course, our regular weekly tournaments to dive into. This weekend, we will not be casting the KSL, just because of the Polish qualifiers. There's a lot of casting going on, so we're going to have to do KSL via replays. And again, we might be catching up with Pegasus Cup also via replays as well. It does depend, just because there's just so much StarCraft going on. And again, we do apologize for not casting last night. We did miss 2 events as a result. And some personal things came up, so we weren't able to cast, weren't able to do anything, or weren't able to cover anything there. So I do apologize, but again, we'll be catching up. And a big shout to Spagoots in the chat. Thank you so much for the subscription for 3 months. Thank you. Do appreciate it. Este Spagoots. Otherwise, thanks for watching. Thanks for tuning in. I hope you all enjoyed yourselves. Hope you all had a great time. And we'll be back next week with some more updates, with some more PondCasts. And again, our next coverage, our next tournament cast is going to be Home Street Cup in 11.5 hours. Again, the replays of some of the matches missed in Group C. Otherwise, we'll see you guys next time. Until then, thanks for watching. Hasta luego. Take care of yourselves. Have a great rest of your week. See you next time. Ciao. Papi ciao. See you next time.